What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of VR365. What is going on? It is Sunday. It is March 8th, and yes, we are a few days closer to Half-Life Alyx, so a lot of people are getting excited about that. But you know what? Today, on Sunday, I was looking at the news, and I gotta tell you, the news, weak sauce. Weak sauce. There just isn't anything really going on. So I'm going to go in a completely different direction on today's episode. And another thing that I was trying to do before today's episode, last minute style, is I was trying to get a hold of a guest at the very last minute, but I wanted a guest that knew about PlayStation VR. Because this particular episode is all about PlayStation VR. Yeah, and there goes all the viewers. They're all gone. Nobody gives a rat's ass about PlayStation VR. No, we actually do have some people that care about PlayStation VR. And even if you are a PC VR gamer that normally doesn't care about PlayStation VR, you might want to stick around, check this episode out, because here's the thing. I'm going to be talking about Sony's conundrums. They're conundrums, and they've got a lot of them, because this introduction of PlayStation 5 and PlayStation VR 2.0, and then mixing that with the existing situation with the PlayStation VR that we have right now, with the PlayStation 4 that we have right now, with PlayStation 4 Pro that we have right now, it's a conundrum. There's a lot of issues that Sony is going to have to deal with over the coming months as they introduce PlayStation 5. They talk about VR. They talk about exclusivity. They talk about PlayStation VR 2 possibly. They talk about tracking, all kinds of different things. It is going to be a tremendously interesting, exciting kind of a scenario. And today, because honestly I had nothing else I could do, I whipped this up within like the last couple of hours, just coming up with questions and ideas. And I thought, you know what, here's a topic we can get into out of the blue. So kind of a weird episode, I got to admit, but this is more for the listeners out there. For those of you that do like to listen to this stuff like a VR podcast, here's going to be an interesting VR podcast. Might not be the greatest thing visually, all right? Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to be throwing some different topics on the screen, and, you know, we'll get into it. So basically, here's the way I wanted to dial this conversation in. And I will be checking out at chat. I will be checking out at chat. And Jan Red says, PSVR 2 is so vintage. Gaming science teacher is laughing. A lot of people are laughing because I did say, yeah, so we're going to talk all about PlayStation VR 2, and there goes the entire audience. But actually, we've got 20 viewers right now. So just stay with me, guys, because I'm telling you, this is going to be interesting, because what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to cover this thing from an angle that I don't know that anybody else is covering. Although, honestly, I'm not watching a lot of PlayStation VR exclusive content. So maybe somebody is really covering this. I haven't seen it. I haven't heard it. So as far as I'm concerned, I've created it from scratch, and I'm the only one to think about this. And so that's what we're going to get into. Okay, something about the cat in the background. Well, you know, that beautiful kitty cat right there. Actually, okay, let me move over this way. Okay, watch this, guys. Here, kitty, kitty, kitty. Aw, she's so cute. She's just in a little bubble ball. She's just chilling there, snugging on my VR rug. TM VR rug. Okay, so what we're going to do here is I'm going to talk about 5 different camps that Sony is going to have to deal with in relation to PlayStation VR. 5 different camps of people. 5 different camps of gamers. 5 different camps of gamers that have completely different needs and wants in relation to PlayStation VR 2.0, in relation to PlayStation 5, in relation to next-gen VR that Sony has their name on it. That's what we're talking about. And so there's 5 different camps. Got to cover 5 of them. So let's go ahead and dip into this. And we're going to start off with camp number 1. So what are the primary issues for camp number one. First of all, who is camp number one? Okay, camp number one is current PlayStation VR owners with no plans to buy a PlayStation 5 and no plans to buy PlayStation VR 2. These people exist, ladies and gentlemen. These people exist. There are people that have a PlayStation 4. They bought PlayStation VR. They maybe didn't get it on sale. They maybe didn't get it on a great deal. They bought it for full effing price, and they bought their PlayStation 4 for full effing price, and maybe they aren't on the cutting edge, and maybe they're not jumping to PlayStation 5 or PSVR 2, and they have no effing plans to do so. That is a camp of people. Let's talk about them for a second. Okay, what does Sony need to do for this camp of VR gamers? Well, they need to continue to deliver a steady stream of PSVR games that work fine on the OG PlayStation 4 well into the future. Okay, because these people are expecting, like, these people don't think, oh shit, I bought a PlayStation 4 and I bought a PSVR 1 and now all of a sudden there's a PlayStation 5. So all of a sudden the flow of games is just going to get chopped off and there's no more games for me because I got to buy PlayStation 5. I got to buy PlayStation VR 2. No, they want a steady stream of games. They don't want any disruption whatsoever. They want a continual stream of regular games that work with the old ass PlayStation 4 and work with the busted tracking. You know, I'm sorry, but these people want these continued games coming. Okay, so what is the conundrum for Sony? Well, the conundrum is internally, Sony probably sees this whole thing as a major waste of resources. Like, they want to move on into the future. And they're moving forward with PlayStation 5. They're going to move forward with PlayStation VR 2.0. Completely new tracking, new controllers, a whole new ball of wax. And if they could, they would just pretend that PSVR, the original version, never existed. They would love to do that. Unfortunately, they can't do that. They're pissing off an existing consumer base that they have that is thrown out a lot of money towards them and really believed in this VR vision. They cannot just diss those consumers out of hand and just say, F Camp 1, we don't give a rat's ass about you guys. It's all about the future. So move on, deal with it. You know, so that is Camp 1. All right, so that's Camp 1. Now what I'm going to do is, damn it, that's not what I wanted to do. Well, I guess what I could do is this. I could throw on this. This is the way I wanted to do this. I wanted to do this backwards. Okay. Actually, no, wait. I know how to do this. Okay, so hold on. I think I can do the same thing. I think I could probably show the same thing on the same thing. Right? Yeah, there we go. Okay, and then on this, I can throw on some gameplay in the background of PSVR. Sorry, guys, this is something that should have been done prior to the actual show. But, oh well, here we are. Okay, so yeah, so we're talking right now about this camp. Now, this camp of gamers, do we really care that much about this camp that has no interest in PlayStation 5, no interest in PlayStation VR 2.0? No, we don't really care about this camp, right? Because we're early adopters. We're hardcore. If you're watching this show, if you're listening to this as a podcast, you're probably a nut job, because that's what this is designed for. So we don't really care about these people, but Sony has to care about them, and they have to cater to them. I don't know why that just disappeared. Hold on a second. I need to, properties, loop. Yeah, there we go. Okay, there we go. Yeah, so anyway, that is Camp 1. Now what we're going to go ahead and do, and we're going to go ahead and grab Camp 2. So let's see, media source here. Let's talk about Camp 2. And then after Camp 2, we've got 5 of these to go through. So there's 5 different conundrums that Sony's going to have to deal with. Okay, so PSVR Camp 2. Current PSVR owners with no plans to buy any new VR hardware anytime soon, but they might consider upgrading to PlayStation 5 for better VR. Okay, so basically what this is these are people that have PlayStation VR right now. They don't care about a new PlayStation VR, but they might buy PlayStation 5. And so they're kind of interested in PlayStation 5, but maybe not tremendously. But they just bought PlayStation VR. So like they just bought it within the last year. So the normal people out there don't buy hardware and then 8 months later buy new hardware and then a year later buy new hardware and then buy 3 more new headsets the next month. We're weirdos, all right? We are weirdos. Like we're buying stuff all the time. We're upgrading, we're selling things, we're swapping things out. We are nut jobs. But the average consumer out there, they buy a big piece of hardware, they're keeping it for like 3 or 4, they think they're going to get 3 or 4 years out of it. But these people might be excited about PlayStation 5, but they've got to be convinced. Okay, what does Sony need to do? They need to release exclusive PlayStation 5 VR games. Something very compelling that will allow Camp 2 to have a reason to shell out the big bucks that are required for PlayStation 5. So Sony has to cater to these people as well. So now here's the conundrum. Here's the conundrum, though, that Sony has to deal with here. Camp 1 gamers are going to wonder why the games can't be watered down to work on a regular PlayStation 4. The problem is Sony knows that if they water these games down for PlayStation 4, for example, let's say they have Farpoint 2. Let's say they've got a game called Farpoint 2 that is launching right around the same time as PlayStation 5. It works great on your PlayStation 5 with your existing old busted PlayStation VR 1. You can play Farpoint 2. The graphics are incredibly enhanced and amazing, but they also convert it so that if you don't have PlayStation 5, you can still buy Farpoint 2. Not quite the same experience, watered down, but it's available. If they do that, then what reason does Camp 2 have to buy a PlayStation 5? They have no reason. So it's this exclusivity conundrum. Do they go exclusive? Do they do this or not? Okay, so anyway, let me go ahead and check over here on chat. And let's see. The VR Mang says, current VR market of 5 million is unfortunately a misleading number. I'd like to see current number of active PSVR users. And even with the 5 million, like even if we roll with that 5 million number and we celebrate that 5 million number, it's actually like 5%. Like that is 5% of their entire install base, even if we were to be excited about that 5 million number, which I'm not excited about it. But yeah, then you go into active users. But that's a problem that all the VR platforms are dealing with, maybe other than Quest. Like I imagine most people that have bought a Quest, I don't think there's very many Quests that are right now in a closet and have collected 2 months worth of dust. I don't think there's very many of those, because I think those people would have put it on eBay and made an effing killing off of that shit. It would have worked out as a double up, a damn near investment. Would have been pretty incredible, right? So I don't think Quest owners are collecting dust, but I know there are Rift owners that have that in their closet. I know there's Vive owners with that in their closet. And definitely PlayStation VRs are in closets. That is a good point, the VR Mang. Philly G says, oh my God, I need to finish Astrobot, but every time I turn on my PS4, I start playing flat games. Oh my God, for the love of God. Some people still play flat games. I don't understand it. No, I know. No, there's great flat games. I've got limited time. I've decided to just say, you know what? I'm just going to pretend flat games do not exist. Zayla Maru says, there hasn't been a PSVR exclusive that got me since Blood and Truth. Dude, it has been slow in the PlayStation VR world. There's no question about that. We're not talking about what's going on in PSVR land right now. We're talking about the future, these conundrums that Sony has to deal with. Okay, Zayla Maru says he's in Camp 2 right now. He's waiting for more info on... Wait a minute, though. If you're interested in PSVR 2, see, Camp 2, these are people that have no intention of buying another $500 headset. These people just bought a $500 headset. They want it to work for like 3 years. Well, not 500, but they paid like 250 or 300, 350 tax. You know, they bought a couple extra controllers, couple extra Move controllers or whatever. You know, they're paying money. And they don't necessarily want to run out and buy a PlayStation VR 2 headset for another $500. Okay, so what we're going to do now is let's check out Camp 3. Okay, so what I'm going to do here with Camp 3, I'm going to switch this around. We've got 2 trailer windows. We can do all kinds of amazing things. So I'm going to throw Camp 3 over here. And then on the other trailer window, we will throw a PlayStation VR game of choice. Okay, so now we're going to talk about Camp 3. What is the situation with Camp 3? Well, Camp 3 is an interesting group of PlayStation VR owners. These are people that have a PlayStation VR. They have either a PlayStation 4 or a PlayStation 4 Pro. Now, they're very excited about what VR can do. They've tasted VR. They've played Wipeout. They've played Resident Evil 7. They've played Astrobot. They've played Shadow Legend. They've played Beat Saber and Audica. So they've experienced what PlayStation VR is capable of, and they're excited about it, but they want next-gen VR, but they don't really want PlayStation 5. Now that sounds kind of weird, right? People that want next-gen VR for their PlayStation 4s and their PlayStation 4 Pros. These are the people that wanted new controllers or an update to the headset before we even started talking on the conversation of PlayStation 5. Now, these people wouldn't mind a PlayStation 5. They sure as hell wouldn't mind one, but they've only got one batch of $500 to throw at something. They don't have 2 batches. They don't have $1,000. They've got $500 to throw at something. And so what they're going to do is they want to throw it at a next-gen headset, but they don't want the PlayStation 5. Now, here's what Sony needs to do. Okay, so Sony needs to decide, and I'm sure they've already decided this internally. Sony needs to make a decision. Is PlayStation VR 2 going to be backwards compatible with PlayStation 4 and with PlayStation 4 Pro? And this is not an easy decision, ladies and gentlemen. This is a very difficult decision for Sony because there are 100 million people on planet Earth that have PlayStation 4s and have PlayStation 4 Pros. There's 100 million of these people combined. And PlayStation VR 2.0, if they don't make it backwards compatible, that's a gigantic amount of people that they might have been able to sell out their headset to that they can no longer sell that headset to. But on the flip side of the coin, it would be extremely beneficial for Sony to just wipe the slate clean and leave PlayStation VR 2 for PlayStation 5. Make it a hard requirement. Both of these babies need to live together and they need to love together. And you got to have a PlayStation 5. So Sony has to make a decision about backwards compatibility. Then, assuming they make the right decision, which is cut that cord, cut that umbilical cord, do not cross streams in both directions. Cross streams in one direction, but not both. Cut the umbilical cord. But the next thing they have to convince Camp 3 about is PlayStation 5 is absolutely essential to this next-gen VR experience. You've got to have PlayStation 5, and they've got to show these gamers why. Why is PlayStation 5 so key? Why would it not work really with PlayStation 4, or it would be so compromised to work with PlayStation 4? Okay, so here's Sony's conundrum. The conundrum is backwards compatibility. Backwards compatibility is very popular, extremely popular with gamers out there. But it's one of these things where gamers want backwards compatibility, but they never use it. Studies have been done on it, and less than 20%, I think it's like 16, 17% of gamers ever bother to fire up some old game or some backward, to use backwards compatibility. Most people don't do it. Once you've got the new next gen stuff, you want to go all next gen. Most people do not go back. But it is very comforting. It's a security blanket for consumers in a lot of ways. There will be plenty of pissed off VR gamers if they find out that not only do they need to buy this expensive PlayStation VR 2, but they need a PlayStation 5 as well. So it is a conundrum that Sony has to deal with. That is Camp 3. Okay, so going back over to chat, we had a little problem with technicalities on my trailers. But let's see. The VR Ming says, Jarillo, you're right. PS4 could be ancient history by the time PSVR 2 launches. Jarillo says, I don't think there is a PSVR 2 coming till at least the middle of 2020s. Oh, you mean like years and years away, not just next year. Okay, well, we're going to get into that soon, but let's cover Camp 4. Okay, so now I'm going to switch up both trailers. So hold on, I'm going to get off Falcon Age. And let me see, can I find a PlayStation VR related trailer? Yes, I can. Okay, just keep it PlayStation VR happy. And then let's go to Camp 4. And we've also got some PSVR questions as well. Okay, so here's Camp 4. Now, this is an interesting camp. This might be the most exciting camp that is out there. This is PlayStation gamers. We're talking 95 million of them. 95 million, they don't have VR at all, but they're excited about the possibility of PlayStation 5 working in tandem with a next-gen PSVR 2. So these are people that have passed on current PlayStation VR. They've heard about it. They know about it a little bit. Maybe they tried it at a buddy's house. Maybe they tried it at a Best Buy. But they decided to pass on the original PlayStation VR 2. But now that PlayStation 5 is coming, and possibly a brand new PlayStation VR 2 next gen, all new controllers, all new kind of tracking volume, all new capabilities, combined with the PlayStation 5, it is an alluring possibility. And there's 95 million of these people out there, and it combines PlayStation 5 and it combines PlayStation VR 2, two different products that Sony is going to be trying to sell. So Sony really wants to convince these people, because these people could put a lot of money into their overall revenue streams over the next 5 years buying both of these expensive products. You know, both of these products are going to be $300 plus. And you're talking about getting people that want to buy both of them and use them in tandem. So it's a great camp that Sony really loves to possibly sell to. But they've got to convince these people. Okay, what does Sony need to do? Sony needs to demonstrate why combining a PlayStation 5 with PSVR 2 is the most ideal way to move into the next era of VR gaming. So how do they do this? Well, they're mainly going to do it with the capabilities of PlayStation VR 2, which could possibly have a larger field of view. It could have much higher resolution. It could have high dynamic range. Do you know that the Valve engineers, when they were working on the Valve Index, one of the things that got cut in the Valve Index that didn't make it in the Valve Index was high dynamic range. And Sony has expertise in this kind of area. We might get high dynamic range in a PlayStation VR 2. But there's so many things to consider about PlayStation VR 2. There's so many exciting things, because here's the key angle that you guys got to understand about the PlayStation VR 2. It is a baby. It is a baby that is going to be born, okay? PlayStation VR 2 is a baby that is going to be born, and the baby is going to live at least 4 years. At least 4 years. And they're going to be stuck with that baby for 4 years. And Sony has to understand, like, let's say if PlayStation VR 2 comes out in November of 2021. Okay, you've got November 2021, November 2022, November 2023, November 2024, November 2025. Just to last 4 solid years, it has to be viable all the way until November of 2025. Do you know how difficult this is for Sony engineers to try to create a product in the here and now that is coming out next November that is going to be viable in November of 2025, and to put it all together for $500 or less? That is going to be incredibly difficult, but Sony has to consider this. So they have to consider eye tracking, foveated rendering, cheekbone analysis, lip, and they got to consider all these things because they're going to have this one opportunity for PlayStation VR 2, and it's going to have that one opportunity. And once it's been finalized, and once they go to manufacture, it's done. They could have a million other great ideas, but it doesn't matter. It's stuck and it's locked the way it is. Just like PlayStation VR 1 is locked the way it is. The Quest is locked the way it is. The Rift S. See, all the products that we have, they're locked. You make a decision, it's done. You can do software updates, firmware updates, maybe improve your tracking, maybe add some little extra software features that are using the hardware that's already locked in, but you're not really going to have hardware updates. So it's very critical. Sony has to be very careful with how they do this. Okay, now here's their conundrum. These gamers would prefer not to hear anything about backwards compatibility with PlayStation 4 because these gamers know that if Sony is going to accommodate people with old hardware and old peripherals, that these super high-end next-gen experiences that they really want to clamor for, they're going to be watered down. They're going to be compromised. It's the Questicle situation that we're dealing with in Oculus land. Think of games like Lies Beneath. I mean, Lies Beneath might be an incredibly awesome game, and I'm excited for Lies Beneath. But are you telling me that Lies Beneath has not been affected by the fact that it has to be on Oculus Quest as well? I don't know about that, and I don't know about a lot of games in the PC VR world are going to be affected by the Quest. And these gamers that are in Camp 4, they say, cut the umbilical cord, man. This is a fresh new beginning. This is PlayStation 5. This is PSVR 2. It is a new world. It's a new era. Leave all that busted crap behind. Leave it all behind. Okay, now let's go ahead and see what folks are talking about over here in chat. Okay, Gerillo. Okay, yeah, we covered that one. Let me see. Okay, Greg's VR. PSVR 2 should be backwards compatible for the PSVR 1 games on the PS5, not the PS4 systems. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. Like, I don't know how this is going to work. Okay, so that's a good point. That is a good point, Greg's VR. It's an interesting point because here's the thing. I have Firewall 0 Hour. Actually, let me grab it right quick. That is a very interesting point, Greg's VR. I am glad you brought up that point because you know what I am holding in my hand, folks? This is ancient technology. This is Firewall 0 Hour on an optical disc. This is ancient, busted-ass technology. A physical disc. Actual ownership. This is actual millennials. This is actual ownership. Can you believe this? Like, actual ownership. Do you know that I could give this to my cousin? I could give this to my brother. I could go sell this on eBay or Craigslist. I actually own this. Oh my God, it's ownership. Yeah, you'll have to look it up on the internet. Something called ownership. It actually existed in the past. But anyway, the point we really want to make here is, am I going to be able to take this disc, pop it into a PlayStation 5 with a PlayStation VR 2.0 and be able to play Firewall 0 Hour? I don't know. Now, here's what I think we will be able to do. What I think we will be able to do is I think you'll be able to get this game on the digital store on PlayStation VR, on PS5 with PSVR 2.0. but I don't know that we're going to be sticking these actual discs inside. Well, I don't know. I mean, that's an interesting question. I don't know. Has Sony commented on this? Have they talked about this? But yeah, it certainly is an interesting question, Greg's VR. Okay. Philly G says Firewall, Resident Evil 7, Blood and Truth, and many other PSVR games with updated PlayStation 5 graphics would be amazing. Okay, we're going to get to that question actually a little bit soon. We're going to get to that question soon. We do have some general questions that we're going to get into. Greg's VR says, it makes things a lot easier for the devs of PSVR 2 games. Oh, that they don't have to think about PlayStation VR 4? Hell yes, it does. I mean, this, dude, see, the thing is, everybody has their opinion. Like, you know, everybody in chat has their opinion. But again, it's one of these things where there's no way everybody's going to be right. Okay, we have one more camp, and then we have some general questions to get into. So let's go to one more camp, camp number 5. And this is a weird camp. But dude, I believe this camp exists, and there's probably additional camps that I didn't think about this morning when I came up with all this. Okay, so here's PlayStation VR Camp 5. These are PlayStation VR gamers that tried an Oculus Quest, or they tried the original PlayStation VR. They bought neither product, but you know what? They want a Quest-like product. But they want Sony's name on the side, and they want to play the Sony franchises. These are Sony gamers. They've tried a Quest, and they thought, you know what? That's actually a freaking good idea, but I want Sony's name on it, and I want Sony's franchises in there. I want God of War. I want freaking Uncharted. I want all the Sony stuff on a Quest-like device. I want a device that is similar to the Quest, but better, stronger, more powerful, but made by Sony. Okay, I think there are people that actually are in this camp. It's an interesting camp to think about. Now, what does Sony need to do with these people? Okay, what I think Sony needs to do is I think they need to tease the fact that they're going to experiment with all kinds of gaming devices, including portable VR. Yeah, so I think this is going to happen when Sony unveils PlayStation 5, when they start getting into a situation where they're talking about future-facing products and the way Sony is thinking about gaming going forward. I think one of the things they're going to do is they're going to have a montage that pops up on the screen that shows PlayStation Portable and PlayStation Vita and PlayStation PSP Go, you know, and it shows all these different portable hardwares that they've had over the years. And then bam, Quest competitor, you know, whatever the Quest killer, the Sony Quest killer. The Sony Quest killer pops up on the screen. But I think the way they'll do it is they're not going to be like, bam, here's the product. It is called the Sony blah, 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 Sony VR Mobile. You know, they're not going to have a product, but they could tease it. They could suggest it as a far-flung thing that is being worked on. So at some point in the future, yeah, we're going to have a mobile product that will basically be the Sony Oculus Quest. So a teasing of it, right? Okay, now here's the conundrum. The conundrum is not so much in teasing this idea, but it's in the long-term reality of this idea. Selling both a standalone HMD to compete with Quest, in addition to a higher-end next-gen HMD to pair with PlayStation 5, would be quite the challenge, especially when you consider how small the percentage of their business is VR related. We're talking 5% out of the entire 100 million people that have PlayStation 4. Only 5% have VR. That is only a 5% penetration of that accessory. Now, it's a very expensive accessory, but it's only 5% penetration. Right now, a hybrid makes all the sense in the world. But did Sony know about this 3 or 4 years ago? Sure, right now, we can sit here right now as armchair quarterbacks and say, oh my God, we've got the perfect answer to this problem. The answer is a hybrid that is got standalone capabilities and works with PS5 as just being a dummy VR headset that just takes the video signal in and it uses the controls and the tracking, but it's really being driven by PlayStation 5. And it's also just a straight up standalone hybrid with a faster chip than the Snapdragon 835. Hey, who knows? Maybe Astrobot Jr. is going to be on this new standalone hybrid headset. I mean, it all makes sense. It makes incredible amount of sense. Like it's the most logical thing ever. The problem with this idea is right now we're in the year 2020. Was Sony thinking about this in 2016, in 2017? It's easy to think that they should have been thinking about it, but were they? It's very doubtful that they had any idea that we'd go so quickly into this possible standalone situation where a hybrid would make so much incredible sense. Okay, so anyway, those are the 5 different camps. I know it's convoluted. I know it's kind of crazy, but what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to illustrate that Sony is in a weird pickle with all of these situations. Now they're going to have to navigate it. They're going to have to step on some toes. They're going to have to deal with this. Some people are going to be slightly disappointed. They might dance around a lot of this stuff. So they might not come out and immediately declare things in any particular direction. They might wait. It might be one of these situations where they think, let's cross that bridge when we get there. We don't need to make an announcement ahead of time and get people pissed off. We'll wait until we absolutely have to make this announcement. Okay, so let me go ahead and check out chat. I've got to scroll all the way down to see what people are going on over here. Okay, let's see. Gaming Science Teacher, Camp 5. Sony needs PlayStation VR 2 to connect wirelessly to the PlayStation 5. PlayStation 5 has to be in the same or next room, but no cords. Yeah, that is definitely, that's a great point, actually. That is a great point that Gaming Science Teacher brings up regarding the technology of PlayStation VR 2, and we can kind of go back to what Phil Spencer was talking about cords in the living room, and it's not a good idea, and PlayStation is a living room kind of a product as well, and so wireless would be great. But think about the official HTC Vive wireless adapter that Intel basically made for HTC, and think about the various wireless adapters that we have in PC VR gaming. There's problems with them. None of them seem to work absolutely wonderfully. All of them create ergonomic possible issues, okay? All of them have possible heat issues, and then is the signal, is the latency there? There could be a delay. You could get some weird video anomalies, like seeing a weird green line or something. That's the thing, that we don't really have a great wireless solution right now. Now, I'm not saying Sony couldn't come up with their own special standard where the PlayStation 5 has to be within 15 feet of PlayStation VR 2, but it uses some special signal that the PlayStation VR 5 sends out physically from the console to the PSVR 2 headset that bypasses a lot of these problems and gets crystal clear transmission. I mean, I don't know. And then the cost of it, and how much cost does this add to the headset? How much cost does this add to PlayStation 5 itself? Does some of the technology need to be built into the PlayStation 5 itself? Does that drive up the cost of PlayStation 5? We know how concerned Sony is with PlayStation 5 pricing, forgetting all about VR. Completely forget about VR. PlayStation 5 is way more effing important in flat gaming world to them than VR whatsoever. So, and they're concerned about cost over there, but it's a great question. Absolutely. Philly G says 5% penetration will get you nowhere. Pretty much. The VR Mang says, if the Quest had a higher spec USB-C port, it would be a true Rift killer. Sony would need to make 2 HMDs. Okay, yeah, so we've got a lot of questions. Jarillo says the HTC wireless adapter runs perfect, no latency. Its one issue is price. Okay, well, let's say in a perfect world, but what about this, Jarillo? Is there any heat? What about the ergonomics of it? Like, what is this headset going to look like if it had a built-in wireless adapter? Is it going to look all ungodly? Are they going to be able to belt it? Are they going to be able to belt it in a stealth kind of a fashion? And maybe it's built into the back of it and you don't even really notice that it has a wireless. I mean, and then the cost. Yeah, the cost. So, I mean, it's a definite question. The whole wireless thing is a big question. Okay, so anyway, I had some other general questions related to all of these topics. These are some general PSVR questions, and we might have covered these to some degree, talking about these various camps, but I also wanted to get into some of these questions. And guys, can you believe it? Just on a side note topic, I was going to try to get Kev Gret on this episode, Mr. PlayStation VR. I mean, Kev Gret, he's always on the PSVR subreddit, knows everything that's going on with PSVR, tries as many of the games as he can, and is up to date on everything. God, it would have been so freaking interesting if I had him on this show and we could go back and forth, but it would be like a 4-hour episode. It'd be crazy. Okay, so these are the biggest questions, in my opinion, regarding PlayStation 5 and the entire PlayStation VR ecosystem. So first question, exclusive PlayStation 5 VR games. This is the first thing that Sony needs to decide, and I don't know if Sony has actually made a decision on this yet, or they haven't announced it, I don't think, right? Is there going to be exclusive PlayStation 5 VR games? What that means is, will there be games that you just have to buy a PlayStation 5? You know, for example, Firewall, what do you call it? Firewall? No, Farpoint. If there's Farpoint 2, it requires PlayStation 5. But you can have the old headset. You can play it on the old headset. But you gotta have a PlayStation 5. Will there be exclusive PlayStation 5 VR games? I think there has to be. I think there has to be, because what other way is Sony going to convince people like me to dig into my wallet for $500 this November to buy a PlayStation 5 when there's going to be other VR headsets that are going to be tempting me? Are you telling me there aren't going to be new VR headsets later this year that are going to be tempting as F that you would like to throw $500 to? Or maybe there's a video card that comes out later this year that would run Half-Life Alyx way better than your current video card, and you want to take $500 and another $1,000, $1,500, and throw it at this freaking video card. That's the thing, man. There's so many things that are competing for our money, but Sony has to do it. They've got to have exclusive PlayStation 5 VR games. They got to have them this Christmas. They have to have them this Christmas. And that leads into question number 2. How many PlayStation 5 VR games will we get this Christmas? Exclusive PlayStation 5 VR games. You know, will we get Farpoint 2? Will we get Astrobot 2? Will we get Wipeout VR 2? Could you imagine if they were all just sequels of the biggest games that were on PlayStation VR already? That would be kind of dumb. There, of course, would be some new ones. Okay, so anyway, how many of these? Well, I think you got to get about 6 or 7 of them. I think you need at least 6 or 7 of them, and they all got to look pretty enticing. You need to have a little bit of a library where it's like, okay, damn it, I got to withdraw $500. I got to go to GameStop. I got to freaking pre-order a PlayStation 5. I got to do it because Farpoint 2, Astrobot 2, Bow to Blood, super, super dope edition. You know, all these games, Chromagun, special super 8K resolution edition. You know, all these games are going to be coming out. Okay, question number 3. Remastered PlayStation VR 1 games on PlayStation 5. I think this is mission critical as well, but I think it's got to be more than just it's got to be more than super sampling. Super sampling is not going to cut the mustard here, Sony. You're going to need to take your key franchises like Firewall Zero Hour. I mean, like some of your key games, like some of your biggest PlayStation 1 bangers, and remaster these bitches for PlayStation 5. I'm talking new textures, possibly new 3D audio. It's going to be a lot of work. It's not going to be easy. I think there's probably going to be 2 levels of remastering. Well, basically there's going to be the super sampling that's probably going to come automatically, but I just don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. Then there's going to be probably like a low level remastering where they go in and they touch some things up a little bit that they can do. And then there's going to be more of like almost a complete remaster where they redo all the artwork. I mean, it's going to be a freaking pain in the ass. But I really think we need remastered PlayStation VR 1 games on PlayStation 5 where you own it. You already own it, but the only way you're going to experience this awesome remastered version, you got to drop 500 bangers on a brand new PlayStation 5 this November. Okay, number 5, does Sony tease mobile VR? I mean, this goes back to the whole standalone thing. The Quest killer, the Sony Quest killer, do they get into the game with Facebook? Facebook has 99.9% of the standalone market right now in terms of installed headsets for a specific platform. At some point, Sony's going to have to address this. I think they do tease mobile VR, but like I said earlier, I think they tease it in such a way that it's like a far-flung thing. Like we don't have, kind of like Facebook is making AR glasses. They might not make them for 5 years, but they're making them, you know, kind of that kind of thing. Like, yeah, we're doing this, but it's in the future. Don't worry about it. It's not anytime soon. You know, it'll be a while. Okay, PlayStation VR 2, is it coming next spring? Or is it coming next November 2021? Or, according to what Jarillo was talking about, Jarillo was saying maybe like later on, like we're not even getting like no PlayStation VR 2 until like 2024. You know, like it might be a number of years. Like no, like PlayStation VR 2 might come for a PlayStation 6 or something, or I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what Jarillo was saying there. Okay, here's what I would say to this question, though. Question number 6. Spring. Let me tell you about spring. I've been a video game nut job since the freaking late 80s. Since the late 80s, I've been a video game nut job. And I've seen all the video game stuff there's ever to see. I've seen all the announcements that all the companies have ever made. I've read all the video game magazines. I've read all the websites. I've seen this so many times. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, you know how many times I've heard a video game company talk about how they're going to launch in the spring? You know how freaking rare that ever actually comes to pass? It is so incredibly rare. But they will always mention this spring thing. The reason they tell you spring is because they want you to wait a little bit longer. And then in the spring, they say, no, we're delaying it until November. It's the same old thing every time. It's very, very, very rare that anything major comes out in the spring like that. Do not bank on it. Do not bank on it. I say November 2021, PlayStation VR 2.0. November 2021. 1 full year later. That's my prediction. I don't buy the spring game. I would love it, but I'm not buying it. Okay, number 7. This might be one of the best questions and the most important questions. And this goes to all of VR in general. Have we really seen a super duper AAA banger of a developer make a VR game? Okay, well, yeah, we're getting one in a couple of weeks. Okay, so Valve's internal team that has made Half-Life Alyx a true banger of a developer, like in the top 10, right? Although I don't know, like here's the question that I don't know. The question that I don't know is, does Valve, how many internal teams do they have that develop games? And is this one of their highest end internal development teams? And if the answer to that is yes, then yeah, these are one of the 10 best developers in the entire world, right? Okay, so we are finally going to get a VR game that has been developed by one of the 10 best developers in the entire world, and not their freaking C team or their D team. These are the best of the best. Well, I also want to see a freaking Naughty Dog VR game, Sony. If you really believe in VR, then put your money where your mouth is. But here's where we go back to the 5% equation, man. 5% of their user base has VR. Do you take your best studio ever and take those people and place them on a VR game when you could have them on a flat game that could be reaching 95 million people? That's the problem, folks. But there's got to be a day where you eventually invest in the future. You've got to eventually invest in the future. So you eventually have to have Naughty Dog spend 4 years on a VR game. It's going to be painful, but there's got to be a day that you're going to do this, because eventually we're going to move to VR, and you want to have a game that is a game changer, and you got to take one of your best studios and you got to jump on a grenade for the boys, and you got to have them bang away on a VR game for a long time. But yeah, that's a real key question. When are we going to get a Naughty Dog VR game? Okay, and then my final question is, well, we know all about Facebook Horizon, right? And we know about all these different things of meeting up in VR, Alt Space and Rec Room, Big Screen VR, all these different things that are out there. What about PlayStation Home 2.0? Because PlayStation Home, if you Assumption City up in here, hell yeah, this is all assumptions. This is like 2 hours of assumptions. But PlayStation Home 2.0, the thing I'll say about that is, if you had a PlayStation 3 back in the days of when PlayStation Home first happened, it was kind of interesting, man. It almost was like it really needed VR and it didn't have VR. But now we have VR now. I believe Sony, if PlayStation VR 2, it's got to be for PlayStation VR 2, though. Not backwards compatible. No, we've got to cut the umbilical cord. That's really the biggest overall question that we have that is going forward about all of this Sony crap. Like, if I'm going to dial this entire episode into one question, it really boils down to, is Sony gonna cut the effing cord? And it's like, next gen Sony VR, are they gonna cut the cord? Because I think they have to. And if they don't cut the cord, oh shit. If they don't cut the cord, it is gonna be a friggin' nightmare for like developer. Like, I don't think anybody's gonna ultimately be happy. I know cutting the cord is painful as hell, but they gotta cut the cord. And part of cutting the cord would be like PlayStation Home 2.0. Not being constrained by PlayStation 4, not being constrained by the first PlayStation VR hardware. That's why there's so many conundrums in all of this. I'm telling you, I could do multiple shows on this subject, and it would have been so awesome to have had like a couple extra PSVR guys on this show to like really freaking get into it. Philly G says Ubisoft. What Ubisoft VR game? No, Ubisoft, okay, maybe like the Assassin's Creed one, maybe the Assassin's Creed game that they're working on, maybe that will turn out to be allegedly that Ubisoft is allegedly working on. Maybe that will be like a AAA developer. Gotta hope so. But no, we really haven't had true, legit AAA developers in VR. We haven't really had that. And I'm including Ready at Dawn, and I'm including Insomniac, and I'm including 4A Games, which that might sound disrespectful for me to like be like, Insomniac, 4A Games, London Studio. Yeah, it might sound a little bit disrespectful. And you know what? It is. It is a little bit disrespectful. But they're not up there. They're not up there. And then like Bethesda, They haven't done a real VR game. Like even Wolfenstein. Like, no, I'm talking about taking your freaking A team. I'm talking about taking your A team. There's no A teams working on VR. Half-Life Alyx is the only freaking game. Half-Life Alyx is the only game where the true effing A team, like, 4A Games, when they did Arctica 1, do you think it was really their freaking top level talent that did that? Or like Epic Games, when they did Robo Recall, do you think it was their number one development team, like the freaking star development team, their money makers? Do you think it was them that made Robo Recall? No, we haven't had legit AAA bangers. Okay, Jarilla says Stormland was by Insomniac. Do you know how many teams Insomniac has? So Insomniac's A team is the team that made Spider-Man for PlayStation 4. That's their A team. Are you telling me that exact team also made Stormland? Because I'm saying no. I'm saying it was a different team within Insomniac. Insomniac has like different locations. Like a lot of these developers, they have like 200 people that are under them. They've got multiple teams. They've got an A team, a B team, and maybe a C team. And I know that parts of one team, like 20 guys from this team, will jump over here and work with there, and then they switch over. I know there's a lot of switching around that's going on, but what I'm talking about is one of the reasons Half-Life Alyx is so freaking important. When we play this game on March 23rd, let me grab a trailer for that. Might as well throw a trailer for that on the screen. But dude, when we play Half-Life Alyx in like, I don't know how many days it is now, but when we play that, let's see, I'm trying to find one of the proper videos. But when we play that, it's gonna be the first time we've ever seen true AAA development. We've never. I'm gonna make the argument we've never seen true AAA development. I'm sorry. Disrespectful as you want that to be, go ahead. I haven't seen a Naughty Dog VR game that was made by Naughty Dog. Nah, man, I'm sorry. You might consider that disrespectful. I'm not trying to disrespect London Studio. I'm not trying to disrespect Ready at Dawn. But in a slight way, I'm just saying they're not top 10. I'm saying they're great developers. I'm saying they're not top 10 in the world. Yeah, the VR Mank says Robo Recall. Yeah, that was Epic Games, but what I'm trying to tell you is Epic Games probably has 5 different internal teams. They've got like A, B, C, D, E, F, and it was probably like the D team that worked on Robo Recall. That's my personal opinion. Scion VR says Saints and Sinners is the best thing in VR so far from what I've heard, closest to AAA. Yeah, that's probably true. And Skydance Interactive, like, they have an all-star team there. They've got a lot of high-end developers that have worked in a lot of other high-end AAA developers that came in to Skydance Interactive and formed that original team in the first place. And maybe they will be considered a top 10 team. But right now, there's only like, I don't know. We could look it up on the internet. What are the all-time best developers, period? Like, we could do a Google search for that. Let's see. Let's try a quick Google search. Let's do best game developers. Top 50 video game design companies in the world. The problem is, Nintendo. I mean, Nintendo's internal development studio. Valve's top-end internal. Rockstar Games, of course. And it's Rockstar North, right? It's basically Rockstar North. Electronic Arts, hell no. Activision Blizzard, yeah, within them they have a couple. Sony has a couple internal teams. Yeah, so Naughty Dog, they got Naughty Dog at 10, Bungie. Yeah, I mean, it would be interesting to like really try to understand what are the 10 best developers in gaming altogether. Like, what are the true 10 best developers in gaming altogether? I'm not sure. But yeah, it's an interesting question. But anyway, guys, that's pretty much gonna go ahead and do it for today's show. Like I was saying earlier, I didn't really have much to work with. today in terms of like news and stuff. Didn't know what I was going to do. And I have been thinking about this PlayStation VR Conundrum thing for a while now. And I know it's kind of convoluted and this might not have been the most entertaining show. I think it would be a good show probably for somebody just listening to the audio. I don't know that it'd be a great show for somebody that actually watches the show. Now, we also had a major problem during the show where I was screwing around with these different game trailers and I had no idea that the audio was blasting. And so I probably have like a 10-minute, maybe 15, maybe a 20-minute. I don't know how long it was. I don't know how long it went, but I'm going to have to edit that out. The good news is the YouTube version will have that edited out of it. So that is good. Okay, so I need to thank a couple of people actually. Wait, let me thank some sponsors real quick before I bounce out of here, because I did have a recent PayPal donation. So I did want to thank you. I did want to thank Ray Delatorre. Ray Delatorre with a $5 PayPal donation. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much, Ray Delatorre, for that recent donation that you made. So definitely appreciate that. And then we also have one new Patreon supporter. It's actually a returning Patreon supporter. So Conrad Lawrence has been part of my Patreon before and has recently bounced back onto the Patreon. So definitely glad to have Conrad Lawrence back on the Patreon. Really appreciate that. So I did want to thank both of those people. Also, actually, one other thing I should thank is the people in chat that have been doing the like Twitch Prime things, if I can find it. Let's see. So there might be another way I can look at that by looking at notifications. Does it pop up that way? No, it's not showing it this way. Yeah, okay. Greg's VR, subscribe with Twitch Prime. Greg's VR has been subscribed for 4 months and is currently on a 1-month streak. So Greg's VR did it. Thanos 2001 subscribed with Twitch Prime. Subscribed for 5 months, currently on a 1-month streak. So you know why a lot of these people are on a 1-month streak? It's because you got to do this every month, man. And no, I know it's hard. And a lot of people, like, I appreciate it, though. Anybody that does subscribe with the Twitch Prime or any of that stuff, I really appreciate it. And we actually had a lot of people in chat today. And there was a lot of discussion that was going on in chat. And probably some really good comments that I completely missed. But oh well, there's just too much information to go over. But anyway, guys, let's see. That's pretty much going to go ahead and do it for this episode of the show. So let me go ahead and get my little outro thing out on here. But yeah, I do thank everybody that did happen to join our show today. And I hope it was somewhat interesting, even for those of you that aren't really into PlayStation VR. And maybe you don't really have a plan to buy PlayStation 5. And maybe you're probably not even going to buy a new PlayStation VR 2.0 headset. But it still might have been interesting to think about the issues, the scenarios that Sony is going to have to navigate. It is going to be one of the most interesting things that is going to go on in this entire year, is to understand like the price of PlayStation 5 and all the information that trickles out. And it's got to start trickling out pretty soon. You know, GDC was probably going to be a place where Sony was going to drop some information. The GDC, of course, got canceled, but you know, later this month there could be some big information from Sony about PlayStation 5. And whenever the PlayStation 5 information does come out, we might get some VR information as well. So it'll be interesting to see how Sony navigates that. Alrighty, guys. Well, yeah, that's going to go ahead and do it for this episode. I will, of course, be back next Thursday, 5 p.m. Pacific time, back on YouTube. And this episode, of course, will end up on YouTube as well. I've got to like re-render it and edit it a little bit, but it'll be on YouTube probably in the wee hours of the morning. But anyway, I will see you guys then. So everybody have a good one. Take it easy and later.